Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back down the rabbit hole. I am your host, Monty Hook, and I am in the studio in Bali. And today I'm joined by the lovely Rhonda Swan. Yay! For this is actually a round two. So we spoke about 6 months ago.
Has it been that long?
Yeah, it was like August or so. Now it's February, so about 6 months. Yeah. Right. And I wanted to catch up with you again because...
That's like light years for me right now.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to catch up with you, because it seems like so much has changed in just a short amount of time since we spoke. And last time, we dug in a little bit. You shared your story about, how you came to be the lioness entrepreneur that you are.
Yeah.
And I think even in the last 6 months, in this last few months, you've taken things to a whole other level. Your business has grown from probably at that time, it was 10 staff, and now it's close to 50. Is that right?
Yeah.
Right. So what the fuck's going on, Rhonda?
Well, the answer may not be what's expected.
Yeah.
I could go tactical, right? We can talk about operations and things like that, which has a lot to do with it. But to be completely transparent, I got out of my own fucking way. And I opened Pandora's box of all the things that I thought were serving me, all my drivers that were causing me to be like a bulldog. And I let all that go.
Yeah. So what was that getting in the way of before?
Well, I was getting in the way of connection, of me being able to see a bigger vision. Like I was always able to create any goal and hit, any level that I wanted. I could literally say I probably have maintained that steady, squiggly, but always up line. But I wasn't super fulfilled, and I wasn't creating really good connections and relationships as much as I wanted to. And so I'd find myself in like company growing, and then it would only grow so far, and then it would like ease back in. And I kept finding myself really burned out, doing the one that always is doing all the work, and it wasn't as flowing as I wanted it to be. And I realized it's because I was white knuckling so much, and I didn't think that I was.
So you were actually blinded to some things, like you had blinders on because you were just in
go mode.
Yeah.
And I wanted everyone to be like me, and I realized that not everyone's like me.
Yeah, not many people are, Rhonda.
No, that's a good thing.
That's what I find about
myself. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny to say, but I'll say it straight up. I really think I truly had a spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
And I've been spiritual all my life, but it's kind of been in the back door. I think we talked about this a lot last time. But my daughter, Hanalei, there was a draw that came from the need that she was emerging in her spiritual understanding. And I realized I had kind of put it to the back burner. I just allowed it to be part of me. And instead, I realized that I had been pushing that down because I think I was either afraid or I wasn't, as comfortable.
Yeah.
And I started to open that Pandora's box, if you will.
There's a couple of things I want to dig into here. One is, the business, the operations, some tactics there, because you've actually made some really smart moves, which is something that maybe you should have done before, but maybe it's something you didn't see.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to talk about that because I think that's really useful for people, what you've actually done tactically. The other part is the spiritual side, or if it's okay, can we dig into that a little bit?
Yeah.
Now, we have done some ceremonies together in the last 6 months. I won't go into the details of what that is and what that's like. But we've been part of each other's kind of spiritual journeys, I guess, in the past 6 months, and I've actually really witnessed you evolve, and I would hope you've witnessed me evolve as well.
Right?
But what I want to touch on here is that you've done a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like you've done a lot, right? So was that something that you felt called to do, or is it something that you felt like something was missing, so you wanted to jump into that, or why the depth that you've gone to?
Well, I've done a lot of work. I mean, it's been a pure dedication, and I'm kind of that style. I either do it really, really well, or I don't do it at all. And what I realized the moment that I started tapping into it wasn't that I wasn't spiritual, that I didn't get it. It was that I was not embodying it. And I wasn't living my life as that guided temple, if you will, that literally allowed me just to completely beam in who I was. And I went deep because I found out that and I didn't know any of this, that there was ancestral healing that needed to be done throughout my lineage. Like my family is American Indian. I have American Indian background, Italian, and there's a lot of damage and healing that needed to go through. And I didn't really understand that. When people talk about healing, I was like, okay, we're going to heal some traumas, because I didn't accept the things that I've gone through in my life. And I didn't think that the things that I went through, and just in my own life, were causing and holding me back. Yeah. But even more importantly, the things that have happened in my past, like American Indian women. When I did my first ceremony, I'm American Indian warrior woman came out of me. It was just like, and I've always associated with Wonder Woman, like that's my power. But they were fighters. Like they were fighters. So I realized that's who I was. I was this warrior, powerful woman, but I was fighting instead of being a warrior.
It was forceful.
Forceful. But that's my heritage, my ancestral heritage. These women have been, American Indians, like raped, pillaged, all this suppression and all these things that they've gone through. I didn't know that can trail through our lives. My great grandmother was a medicine woman. She was like a Cherokee Indian, a chief. So like think about the ancestral lineage and what they've gone through. And that was coming through my family, my mom, my grandmother, all the way into me. And when I realized that I could bring this also into my daughter's life, is when I had the realization that I needed to heal myself in order to stop all of this pain that I've been going through. And so my daughter can become sovereign. Yeah. And she didn't need to take it with her. But when that was brought up to me, I was like, whoa, yeah, this is heavy. Like what? Well,
what I love about this and the example that you are through this deep journey is that, you're a powerful businesswoman. You were doing big things before, but what's crazy is you've 5 times what you're doing.
It's unbelievable.
Through this work, and usually there seems to be this. It's very easy to kind of look at the people in the spiritual world, the spiritual space, and kind of go, well, they're not doing anything with their lives. There seems to be this massive separation. So as a successful entrepreneur, because it's the same for me as well, like I kind of just pushed it back. I had experiences when I was young, and I always knew that there was more to life than what my senses can see and feel and touch and all of this. But I know I suppressed that, and then what's really interesting is tuning into this side of ourselves. It just opens up, and you call it the vortex. Like you've opened up this vortex, as you call it. And I just want to acknowledge you for being the example for that, because I feel like people almost feel like they need permission to pursue that, right? And I feel like, especially women, there's a lot of women who probably have this intuition and they have these feelings around that's something that they want to pursue. But there's so much pressure from society on, to be successful. I've got to be a career person, and I've got to make money, and I've got to prove myself to the world. But you can have both. Actually, it's like it's tuning into this, which
I think it was a trick, right? It was all this big story that we were told. The reality is, right? We have been in such a patriarchy way of living, and I grew up in this, male-dominated world. And so in order to get ahead, I had to fight. And so that's the story, the bullshit story that we've been told as a female. In order to get ahead, you got to be the power, you got to wear the power suit, you got to fight for this and do this. And I did all of that, right? And, it's kind of a joke to even consider now that like the Equal Opportunity Equal Opportunity Rights Act in the United States is not even passed for women. Like it blows my mind, right? So the fact that that's possible, but I think that's what happened. We were told all of these stories that's who we need to be. And so instead of following the guided path, the spiritual path or my feminine path, I just went hard because I was taught by men. I followed men. All the ones that were making money were men. And I wanted to be like that. So I lost so much of my feminine side. And I realized I got really hard. And without even knowing that that's how I was navigating. But it got me to as far as it needed me to go.
It created a level of success.
Yeah.
And this is
and a ceiling.
Yeah, and this is what I want. Tuning to the next question, which is that obviously that became a very strong part of your identity.
Yeah.
Right? So what have you noticed through this spiritual practice and ceremonies, and what's unraveled for you? And another way of asking is, what's the view you have of yourself now that is different to before?
That's a really good question. What's unraveled for me is my connection to spirit, my connection to source. And I'm not the driver. When I'm opening up to what is coming from this, I mean, my goodness, living on this planet is so much energy, right? It's funny, I loved the movie Avatar. I was like, oh, I wish we live like that. We are Avatar, like we should be living that way, right? Which is connected to Mother Earth and what's given to us and the energy that we're provided with. I was living on this planet, right? Now I'm living within this planet. I'm connected to the source energy that I thought was super airy-fairy. And, you know, being American Indian, my great-grandmother and my family, like I was thinking, if I see another dream catcher, I'm gonna barf. Like, I'm just sick of these things. Like, seriously, and I was so like this. But now what's happened is I'm really realizing all the judgments that I was putting on that because I wasn't really willing to tap in to that side. And I thought that I was gonna be judged because I couldn't then become successful. All I saw was, you know, the airy fairies, if you will. And I'm not judging, but that's like a, you know, logo, you know, statement to kind of, I guess, categorize people. And that's what I was doing. I was judging. And so when I started going through this journey, I really started seeing myself. I was confronting myself. I was confronting who I was to others. All the words that I was saying I wasn't because I wasn't truly authentic. I had been hiding all the stuff that happened to me as a child, the sexual abuse, the eating disorders, you know, like the image that I thought I loved of myself, but I didn't, because it was all about, I was trying to be something for everyone else. And when I let all that go, and I mean, took a lot of time. That was a process, you know, to be able to face yourself and say, who really are you for the world? Who are you for your daughter? Do you want her to be like this hard ass businesswoman that makes money and just charges through? And that's what kept showing up for me. Yeah,
that's really powerful. Let me ask you this. So a lot of people who might be watching this, they might think that the stuff that we've done is pretty extreme, which it probably is. Like we've dropped ourselves in the jungles, more or less, right? And gone really deep, really hard without question, right? What could other people who are maybe listening to this going, you know, something here resonates, you know, there's something for me to explore here.
Yeah.
What's something that people could do to start to tune into this, do you think? Do you think okay. So do you think it's a good idea to drop yourself into the ceremony or the jungle or whatever?
Because I'm hardcore like that, right? Like you are. I needed to be immersed in it. Like I can never put my toe into something.
I'm just very mindful of the fact that maybe it's not right for everybody.
Because it could freak some people out. Yeah. Right, because it is extreme, right? To go into that space and where you're in a ritualistic ceremony and you're sitting up all night and you're focused and you're praying to the fire and you're connecting to source and you're letting the ancestors come in, like, that's just intense. People might be going, whoa, like, you want to say airy fairy, that's like wild, right? So I think, we went super extreme. However, I think just starting to listen to yourself, and right now more than ever, Monty, like the world is so fucked up and there's so much pain that people are going through. And I really think more people need to just start looking back and tracking back, like what were the things that stopped them from joy, like real, true happiness and joy. And I think there's a lot more pain that we've gone through. I mean, I have now a spiritual teacher that I work with every couple of weeks, you know, and I never thought I'd say that. You know, I mean, I was in 16 weeks every other week in a ceremony for 16 weeks.
Yeah. So you mentioned just before, meditation is an access.
Yeah.
And this is where it's very counterintuitive, right?
Yeah.
To think, all right, I'm going to sit still.
Yeah.
And I've probably got a personality a little bit like you, which has been pretty extreme at times and go hard. And the idea of sitting still to create more is very counterintuitive.
Yeah.
Right. But as you mentioned before, the world's, been in something of a mess. And I think this idea of sitting still, sitting in meditation, creating some rituals in your life, presence, gratitude, just more and more of that allows you to tune into what's most important, and then be in a space, be in a place of where you can do more.
Yeah, I think that's probably the biggest. Is really I didn't have a ritual. Right. So now I've got my altar. I've got I've got my elements.
Yep.
The earth, water, fire, and air. And every morning I give gratitude.
Yeah.
Every morning I come out and I give gratitude. I pray to Creator, thank you. I pray to Mother Earth, thank you for what we've got. I ask for the spirits of Bali to support us. It's just that feeling, and it's interesting. I went away by myself between Christmas and New Year. By myself in nature, no one else but me, my dog. I had Hape, the fire, and my dog, and that was it. No people, no phones, nothing. And I met a monku there though, and he's the monk who's like the priest here in Bali. And I met him one time. He came over and we did a prayer with me, and he said, it's really interesting. Religion is like a boat. And once we get on the boat and it takes us to the other side of enlightenment, we no longer need the boat. So I feel like this conversation, some people might construe it as religious or right. But I grew up in a Christian family, and I was forced to read. I've read the Bible 3 times. I've memorized every verse in the Bible, and I was forced. And I remember being young going, this doesn't make any sense. Why would this God not like this guy because his color? Why would this does not make any sense. I don't like this. However, the religion gave me a foundation of connection, but it was such a negative way. That's why I think I fought it. So now with people, initially I was pushing away an altar, right? And this prayer. And the word, when we started doing ceremonies, we're here to pray. And I'm like,
yeah. The same
it felt weird.
Same for me too.
Right?
For me.
I was super triggered.
Yeah.
And then when I realized that the prayer is about your connection to Creator, you're praying for your life. You're praying for how you can stay connected to this source and be a better embodiment, leave more impact on other people's lives. And I'm praying for my family. And I'm a praying machine now, right? But it feels so good because I know that it's a direct connection to the source and the creation. And so I think that big thing for people is just adding in a little bit of a ritual.
Yeah, and this is what I really love about the ceremonies, because they're run with such sacredness.
Yeah.
Right? And then meticulous.
The tightest meticulous. Yeah, that's what I liked about it.
That's what I love about it.
Because our entrepreneurship wanted it to be tight. Then the spirit was around it, but it was because it was so respected.
Yeah. And what I love is you kind of sit there and the meticulousness of it, you get to witness where you are not that in your life.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
And I kind of go...
If you're the sitting up, all of a sudden you're like this, doing the slouch. It's you can't sit up for 12 hours.
It seems like such a small thing.
It's huge.
But you really get to see how you show up in your life every day.
That's it.
And this is where I think the idea of the rituals and the praying, and it keeps you in that space. It keeps you in check. And whatever people's versions are of that, it doesn't have to be anything like what we've done.
Yeah.
But just that process every day of that gratitude and the prayer.
And I felt this shift. I mean, I can truly say my whole life changed. I was already I was already in tune with my spirituality and my intuition. And I would say, look, I'm a spiritual realist. I got this. I embody it. However, when I started to expand it and connect to the past and start going, wow, that stuff, and visualizing in meditation, seeing ancestors, the crying, the weeping, the pain, and letting it go and forgiving people, letting these things go from my body, I realized how much more powerful I was. I was being weighted down. And so when I started to keep my vortex, I call it, this energy cycle, the people I wanted around me, how I showed up from the ceremony, then those that I was around me, how they were showing up. And all of a sudden I'm creating this epic vortex. And from that, I not only felt better, I looked better, I got younger. If you look at a clip from probably 6 months ago when you interviewed me, I'm I think I look like a completely different person.
Yeah.
Because how I was showing up, my body was heavy. I was right? Because I was worn out.
And it could also be the eyes that you're viewing yourself through now as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
It's really interesting.
It is. And because of that, my business started to explode. how I was showing up to clients, the way I was dealing with situations, like stuff just wasn't phasing me anymore. And I knew because, I was like, look at Creator, you want to give me all the abundance, I will use it for good. I will use it for good. I'll give it to this charity. I'll give it to this. I'll support this goodness.
Give people jobs.
Give people jobs, right? I will do that. And I will hold myself to ultimate, integrity. And it's working. It's really working.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that we're at this point, let's talk about the business a little bit and what has come about in the last 6 months.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that I've observed is, and I think we talked about it in the last one, was systems and organization, etc. What has really supported you is you bringing somebody in who's kind of really high level, who sees the vision, who really gets you, and has basically taken over that side of the business so that you can just focus on nothing but being Rhonda.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So talk us through this, because I think this is really powerful.
This is a big transition.
Yeah. And and the second part of that is, did you not know that before? Do you think that this is now just new because you get to see it through,
No,
new
I
eyes?
did. This is like what I said earlier. I got out of my own way.
Yeah.
Meaning,
so you
I
knew
pushed
you
my
needed this
ego
before.
out of the way, because I thought if the only way it's going to get done well is going to be done by me.
Yeah.
And no one could do it the way I wanted it. No one could do it right. And everyone was doing wrong. And I was pissed at my husband, and I didn't want to work with this guy. So it was all just me.
Yeah.
And I would just take it all on. I got out of my own way, and I realized what my limitations were. Saw what my strengths were and what my limitations were. And I got really honest with myself. Like, first off, do you like yourself? Do you like the outcomes that are happening around you? Do you want to continue like this? Can you continue like this? Are you being the example for your daughter? Are you being an example for other women? Like, are you actually teaching women how to build and be an empowered business, or you teach them how to burn out? And I got really clear. When I looked at myself in the mirror, and I was like, what do you need? I need someone to help me with my systems and organizing, to look at what was going on. And I had dabbled in the systems, but when you're in it, you can't quite see it.
Yeah. You can't see the picture when you're living inside the frame.
Yeah. And I was so good. And I wasn't willing to put the money up for it either.
Yeah.
And I finally said, look, I'm going to invest in someone else's knowledge.
Yeah. And trust. And trust. Yeah.
That's what I actually learned in my ceremonies.
Yep.
That I can actually trust. Yeah.
That's good. That's deep. And I just want to kind of tie this in for people to make it really tangible for people. Because not everybody has a business with 50 people, right?
Yeah.
Or at the stage that because you were already making good money.
Yeah.
Like, let's be clear.
Yeah. We were 7 figures plus.
And you had the resources to kind of tune into that. But for a lot of people, maybe they're not at that financial kind of stage. But to me, it's still the same, right? Whatever version of the next step is in that trust, in putting, bringing other people on board, whatever version is for them, what's right for them in their business at the time, they've got to make the bet. They've got to
double down
and hand over that and give people responsibility and trust in other people, and have the idea that there's people that are smarter than me, and I need to bring them into the business.
Yeah. Well, it's just like that whole, saying when you're in an airplane, put your oxygen mask on first, right? And that's really what I needed to do, is I needed to support myself and then look, okay, what is it? Where am I gapping? Right? And that was my big thing. Like, where is it that you're gapping? Like, where are the holes? And my holes were that in order for me to scale, I actually needed to have a better operational system. Like, I had to have a system that didn't need me. See, I was the bottleneck.
Yeah.
And you and I had had this conversation years before. Like, I've known you for 6 years, and you were talking about this stuff. And I thought I had done it at a certain level, but everything needed me.
So you had manufactured everything, so it still needed to pass through you in some small way.
I had to check off, approve things. Yeah. Everything had to be done by me. I had, still 10 employees.
Okay, so here's an interesting tangent, because you have a responsibility to your brand as well,
for
right?
Sure. Yeah.
So it's important to make sure everything is done well and it is done by the brand.
Yeah.
So how like what was the thing that allowed you to give trust in that? Because the brand is you.
Yeah.
And this is where I think a lot of people get stuck, is because there's so much responsibility that they feel to the brand, and everything's got to be done just this way. Yeah. That's a tough thing for people to overcome.
It is, and it's also, I build brands, right? So that was like such a big thing. I've built this, this legacy brand, which was started with our Unstoppable family, right? Unstoppable family, so it was our values, it was who we were as human beings and as a family, and freedom and all that, good stuff. And then here I started to build all these other unstoppable products and brands underneath it. So when my company, I went on my own and I told my husband, look, him and I have been working together for so long and it really wasn't working. Like, it was like constant clash, because it wasn't that he wasn't working, because now he works with me and it's amazing over the last 6 months. I had been like, yeah, you're doing it wrong, right? And I wanted to be that, person. And so, but what happened is we had to maintain the credibility of the brand. We had to maintain like how I showed up.
Yeah.
Right? And once we got that down, then I was able to find someone that entrusted in that, because I stayed in the front, right? I still stayed in the front. So when I brought in our COO, who's now our partner, I said, look, because I was hurting my own brand, because I wasn't being able to take care of people at the highest level, because it was all just me. Mm. So I was actually diminishing my brand when I needed to have these systems in place to help polish it, if you will.
Yeah.
To bring it back.
That's really interesting. To bring somebody in to feel and see the vision that exists with you.
Yeah.
Like, that's powerful. That's really powerful. And what's really cool here is for you to show people that vision, you've got to be the best version of yourself. Yeah. Right?
And that's how it started. I started going to ceremonies. I got really focused, and that's when I started calling them in. I was like, okay, that's when I started calling them in. So because of my consistency and the work that I was doing, and just the pure dedication to who I was, how I was showing up, that's what made the transition so much easier. Yeah. Right? So like a lot of it came in like a perfect weave and flow, because I was asking for this. I'm like, if you truly want to embody who you are, to be an example for women, to show other families that they can create a business and a life that they love, to put, our company's PR and branding, right? So like, to be able to help to tell people's story, you've actually got to be open enough to tell your own, and you've got to trust enough to let that grow. And so that's really when I started to open up and let the shells down, and armor down.
What's really cool here is let me just give some context to people about your business and what you do. Yeah. Because for those of you who don't know you, Unstoppable Branding Agency, you actually help people with PR, help them get published in really high level publications like Forbes and Entrepreneur Magazine and stuff like this. And the very thing that you're helping people with is the thing that you had to kind of really embrace the most. Mm-hmm. Embrace the most. Yeah. Yeah.
And what's interesting too is that, because right now, especially, leveraging, Google indexing your name and having your story told in top tier publications is like the next level from, we know social media and marketing for companies is probably it's fading. It's just kind of it's going to falter away. But one thing it's not is online real estate, your name, Google indexing, you being showcased as the expert, right? Yeah. So that's what we've been building. However, what I realized, I was telling my own story, and I've been published over 40, 50 times. I was telling such a contrived story before.
You mean like forced with too much strategy and too much tactic?
And what I thought people wanted to hear.
Yeah. Right. So you were writing for what you thought the market wanted.
Right. And I know the market, right?
Yep.
The moment I started to soften up my edges, and I started to talk about the real things, like I never talked about anything personal, really spiritual as much, right? I was a lot more, kept it in. Like everything started to shift because I came real. Everyone thought I was a machine. Yeah. I didn't even realize I had become a machine to everyone. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like you don't even realize when you get to that point, right? And I'm literally acting on like a machine. And the moment that I started to soften up those edges is the moment that the business started to grow. People started to connect more. They started to realize it. And I started to see their stories in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, and then my relationships are improving. My friendships are improving. I'm not pissed at anyone anymore because I'm like, really doesn't matter. The house is not burning down. It's all your stuff. How I react is my karma. How you treat me is yours. So I'm good. And this is stuff that I already believed in. Like I thought I was living it, but I wasn't embodying it. And literally it's like things started to shift. So when I bring my partner in, he's like, okay, this is what I found. This is the gaps. We started hiring people like mad. Like we set the systems together and he's like, look, this is the gap. We need to get you out. We need you to keep being Rhonda. You stay in the front. You be the vibration, the heartbeat, everything you've been building. You just shouldn't be the one ticky-tacking in the background. Because I was doing it all, right? Marketing, ads. I mean, I was doing it all. And when I started to trust that, but obviously I had to really embody my story. People needed, they came in, they needed to know our values. Like I have everyone sign the 5 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz, everyone signs it. When they come in as an employee, they get their contract and they all sign, I will do my very best. I will not take things personally. You know, I will listen, but I'll be skeptical. Like they all sign it because I realized like if I'm going to bring in people that are in our vortex, they got to be in the same frequency as I'm at. And that was what I learned, you know, in our ceremonies.
Yeah.
People that are on the same frequency, they slowly just fade off.
What's cool here is obviously as entrepreneurs, growing a business, growing a team, we know the importance of culture.
Yeah.
But it can become so tactical, right?
Yeah.
And kind of almost empty and meaningless and very strategic.
Yeah.
Right? But what you've tuned into is this really authentic self, which then is just overflowed into the brand and into the business, which then becomes this mechanism of like attracting people who really see the vision, feel the vision.
Yeah.
And they're just so
It's
bought
energy.
in.
I mean, it's funny though. You know this. I just was like, look, anyone that's working for me, if they're working here locally, you need to come into a TP with me. You need to come to a ceremony. Anyone that I know that I might do business with later, we need to be thinking on the same level.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I brought in over 70, maybe 80 people through that ceremony just in the last
So it's like a job
8
interview.
months.
That's really cool.
But the lives, right? I mean, look at the transition you've had.
Yeah.
Your life is completely, you're a completely different guy.
Yeah. Just so people know, like what it has given me, just people might be interested, is the softening is the it's like we get so stuck in this identity that, because I created success, I was already a successful guy, but there's a ceiling to that, right? It can only get you so far, and then exponential growth has to come from another place. And where it comes from is the unlearning, the unraveling. It's like almost fully deconstructing yourself so that you can see differently, right?
Yeah.
It's
And you become a lot more attractive.
Yeah.
Easier. I was told, no one told me this until after, that they're afraid of me. I was unapproachable. I was like, really? I'm like a pretty jolly person. Like, your energy's big and we love your energy.
It's overwhelming for people. It was overwhelming for people, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it was almost unapproachable.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, did I really do that? People don't tell you that stuff until after.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It just came to me to take this in a different direction because what I know you to be the example of is a powerful woman, successful woman, driven, but now you've tuned into this different side of your femininity and this flow, etc. With all the things that have kind of happened in the world in the last 12 months, I just happen to think that what the world needs more of is feminine leadership. And that doesn't necessarily have to be from women. Like it needs men to kind of tune in more to that feminine. And for a lot of men, that's going to sound weird, but we all have feminine, we all have masculine. And I just, it's
a different form of leadership. It's not even, it's not a male or a female. It's actually the way that you lead. It's how you see things and, you know, a bit more compassion and understanding, right? And a more connection because, you know, we are pulsing, you know, connection to the energy that's in this planet, right? And if things are so hard, that's why things were breaking down. That's why everything's breaking down because it's like all this force, this forced energy and this control and this demand, it isn't working anymore.
Yeah, and it's that season is over. But there's people still trying to hold on to it.
Of course.
And
they're going to combust.
Exactly.
They're going to combust.
Yeah.
And the companies that have been run that way are combusting.
Yeah.
And people are wising up. They're realizing like, I don't need to be talked to that way.
And consumers are demanding different things. I heard a really interesting statistic. I don't know if you've heard this from the World Economic Forum. For every $1 that they give women to like for charities and for business, they create $7. And then they give it to men and they lose $3.
Yeah, I've been researching this quite a bit. In fact, I was just interviewed about that by 2025, we allow more feminine energy women to be in business. We'll add over $1.5 trillion into the GDP. Just by that statistic alone.
And in a healthy way.
Healthier way.
In a healthy way.
More open, more connected, more nurturing. And that's actually what's happened in my company.
Yeah.
I'm so much more nurturing than a driving force.
Yep.
Like the other day, one of the girls was kind of stressed, was like, take a break. Take a day off. It's okay. Our house is not burning down, right? And the fact that you can actually say that to people and know that like the world, there's the energetic pressure that's going on right now, people are kind of freaking out, right? And they don't even know why. So to be aware of that, that's a part of that feminine energy of understanding and knowing like, okay, there's a lot of stress going on right now. Let's all meditate or do your thing right now. Like get back into the space that connects you to what, is truly matters. And that's, I think, the way that the world is going to guide. And that's where our economies will grow. I mean, we are at awakening of a new dawning.
Yeah.
Like there are light workers and there's that feminine energy of conscious leadership that is it's exploding. And all of this side, this tough control is trying to hold on to it. You can't stop it though. It's greater. It's exponentially growing. It's like a battery, right? Where that's a draining battery, and there's such a duality right now. And I'm seeing that happening. And, even like the new generations, my daughter's 13, these new generations, they're listening to different music. It's not that hard stuff, that like negative shoot. Like I grew up in Detroit. Like I grew up with some hardcore stuff, right? And it was like, yeah. But the way people talk to each other, these kids don't talk to each other like that. Yeah. They're very conscious. They're very caring, and it's just
and they really care about the planet.
Care about the planet, right? Because we grew up and it was like out the window throwing your chips bag out. How horrible to even think that we did that. Like what? That's like littering. Now you see someone, you're like, oh, I can't believe you're still doing that. But they're just they're more self-acknowledged and they're just more awake and they're more connected. Now, most of them, but I realize if I didn't change, I could have hardened my daughter. And my spiritual teacher said the reason why your spiritual awakening is happening right now is because Hanali needs you the most right now. Yeah. And
which is what the world needs. And by the way, Hanali is such a great example for future of the planet. If we have her as a leader in this world, like I feel very confident and optimistic about the planet.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So you do have a big responsibility.
Big responsibility.
Yeah.
And I thought I was living up. I know, right?
Shit.
It's a big responsibility, and it's funny. A really good friend of ours said to me after a ceremony the next day, he's like, Rhonda, you have something way bigger to do than you're doing right now. Do you know that? You have something way bigger.
I've said that to you.
Right? Yeah. You have too.
Yeah.
It kind of confronted me, right? Because I'm like, I can always do that. I'm like, what can I do? What more? And that's when he said to me, you need to get out by yourself. You need to go away by yourself. And that was right before Christmas. And he's like, you need to get in nature. You need to sit with yourself. And you just need to be with yourself and let all this stuff that's been transmuting, that you've been learning, and this ancestors and what we've been doing in ceremony and the connection, let it all come in. And I was like, what, leave for a week? I got responsibilities, I got my family, I got this, all that distractions that were trying to stop me. I went, wait a minute. In order for me to step back in. I got to step out to step back in. And in order for me to truly embody what I'm doing, what I'm saying, I got to take care of myself. And so I went away. And the messages that were coming through to me, I have never gone so deep in so many different realms, like dimensions, meeting, indigenous
just through meditation.
Elders, just through meditation and hape, which is, tobacco and ash from a spiritual tree that's been collected. Because hape really just helps you, like brings you straight in, allows you to focus and clear your mind. Completely blew me away. I thought 7 days would feel like hell. I'd start at 6 a.m. and I'd go to bed by 10 o'clock at night, and I couldn't believe the day was over.
Yeah.
Being completely alone, not one person, no phone, nothing. It was the best thing I could ever do for myself.
Yeah, and like I said before, it seems so counterintuitive,
right?
to do that. And there's so much talk in the world now of like doing big things and making an impact, and the way to really tune into what is your higher purpose, and that thing is to sit still and listen. Yeah.
And feel it.
Yeah.
And actually really, really feel it. And that's what I did. I really had to be afraid, be excited, and just really feel what was coming through. And I realized, you've got a responsibility.
Yeah.
So
what can you share, like what came to you? Did you get some kind of message about can you articulate the bigger picture, or is it?
Yeah, there was some moments where I was taken to on a beach by my spiritual guide, which is a white horse, and took me to the beach, and there was an indigenous man sitting by the fire, singing ritualistic rattle songs. There was an American Indian woman, if you will, an indigenous woman, and they were chanting, and I was lucid. I was sitting right next to them, and they were praying, and they were singing to the ancestors. They were calling in the spirits, and I felt like I was there. And he turned to me and he handed me an emerald, and he said, "You are guided. You need to stay on the guided light." And crazy enough, I just got that lion tattoo, and I have one color. It's a green emerald on her forehead. He gave me this emerald, and he said, "You need to take this. You need to find where this is leading you to." And then, my mind goes like the yellow brick road. I'm like, where am I going with this, this emerald? And then from there, it walked me through the jungle, the forest. I was feeling the ground, the branches, and I was being guided by a panther. It took me into Shiva's temple. And I'm standing there, I'm like, I was there. And I said, "Shiva, what do I do with this?" And Shiva, with all his arms, came down and said, "You are protected. You are safe." And that's the one thing that I never had, because my father wasn't there with me. I never felt the real support from men.
Yep.
And my husband's dad died when he was very young, so we didn't have that, that side of him to embody that. And I was afraid that I was never been protected, because I was always the one. I got this by myself. I don't need anyone, right? That was what I was living in. And Shiva said, "You've got this. You are protected," and gave me a key. So I got this key, skeleton key, and I got this emerald. He said, "Now you need to go. You need to walk, and you have the key. You can unlock anything that you want, especially inside of yourself." And I'm like, this is heavy. It was so heavy. I was so exhausted. I came out of this meditation. A jaguar, black jaguar walked me back through. I went back into my sacred space, because I was visualizing, here I am in my sacred space. I walk out, and I was like, what just happened? I had to start writing it down, because it was so intense and so vivid that I couldn't even believe what I had experienced. And I was reading this book, The Dark Side of the Light Chasers, at the same time. I was given that. My spiritual teacher said, "Read The Dark Side of the Light Chasers." And it's about seeing your shadows. It's about identifying, your subpersonalities, things that, And I was reading that book at the same time. And so she kind of guides you through a lot of stuff that you're going through. And that was one of them, that a spiritual guide's going to show up. And when a spiritual guide shows up, what does that represent? Who is it? Shiva represented all of the arms and love of the support that I never had. I felt so like just confident and supported and so free. And the indigenous, elders were like my ancestors saying, you've had this all along. Like you have this support from us, but you are supported by men. Mm. And it's okay. Go out, drive the force like a female, but know that you have the masculine to support you. And I was like, I never talk like this. Like, you know what I mean? I never said I'd rely on a man, that was my thing. And like, no, it's not about relying on a man. It's about embracing both sides. So that was really deep.
Yeah, that's deep. And
your people are like, whoa.
Not just deep from your perspective of that depth, but the lessons there for everybody is really or for women especially. Yeah. For women especially. Yeah. Well, and for men to support women in that way. Because we live in this world where there's so much confusion between men and women and masculine and feminine and
the power struggles.
Yeah,
right?
The power struggles.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yeah. And realizing that doesn't need to compete.
Yeah.
You can both be powerful. That's why there's a king and a queen.
Yeah.
You can literally run your own queen and kingdom. And that's what I've been able to embody. And that's why my husband and my relationship is so different. I totally accept him for who he is. Yeah. And now I see his support. He was probably always there for me. Yeah. I just didn't see it. And so much growth has come from that. And then of course, my business partner, most of my companies run by women. It's like 80% women. My business partner came as the COO, and he's, obviously a man. And however, he's got a lot of feminine sides to him. Yep. So he balances out the way I ran it. And we did human design. Did you ever do human design?
Somebody did it for me like just a couple of days ago.
Me too, just recently. Yeah. So I'm a manifesting generator.
That's what I am.
You knew it. I knew we were the same. Right? So funny. I don't know everything about it, but I know like it was run. Him and I, this is so rare. Exact. It was an exact match, especially for business. Exact match. So for partners, it's couples, it's like what? But for a business partner, for two people, normally you need like four people in a corporation. Exact match. Everything I didn't have, he had. Everything I had,
and
he didn't.
Has he done the human design?
We did. We were exact match. She couldn't believe it. She was like, "This has completely blown me away. You guys fulfill on every single missing piece." Yeah. And so that's also part of, I think, why things have just worked, because it's been in complete flow. But that's that's these kind of things that as chargers and entrepreneurs, you just don't look at those type of things. Yeah. But they really matter. Yeah. The way we're designed as a human, the way that we're brought up, the way that we're addressing things in our life actually matter to the outcome of your businesses. Yeah. Especially now more than ever. This is not the 80s. Exactly. Right.
Yeah. So I want to be respectful of your time. But this has been super insightful.
Has it already been an hour?
We're about 50 minutes or so.
Wow, I was like, are we really going to be able to go for an hour? He's like,
well, we could do this probably for
you
hours.
For days.
For hours. But how can people find you? I encourage everybody to go and check out you and Unstoppable Branding Agency and what you're doing, because you actually have some really interesting insights into, I think, what's happening in the world in the digital space. Yeah. Let's touch on that a little bit on what you see, because you mentioned before that social media is kind of going to fade out a little bit, and what still works, which didn't really ever go away, but people shifted their attention to social. What are you seeing in that? And you're also connected to some very high profile people, some really big entrepreneurs doing amazing things in the world. So you got probably some insights, some insights that other people may not have. So what are you seeing? Yeah, well, we started to pick this up a couple of years ago on the trends of where things were going, right? Ads were getting more expensive. And for me, like social media and ads were like a quick fix. So everyone stopped from that,
that foundational building of a brand, which is like SEO and, making sure that you're building really quality content, right? And so we flipped to this social media age. But now I started to see this a couple of years ago, and I started to watch the trends of what's happening and where credibility is lying, right? Everyone's looking for a credible source. And so what we're starting to see is that, if you look at this sea, I say the difference is between swimming in a red sea or swimming in a blue sea. And now more than ever, everyone's dumped into the Red Sea. Yeah. So how are brands and companies and founders and experts positioning themselves differently? And we've been leveraging top tier publications for several years, but we started to do something quite different where we were seeing the digital magazines as being like one of the greatest resources, not only for credibility, but for Google indexing your name and being connected on the domain rating, meaning a site that's got like high credibility, and connecting your name to that. And we started to leverage those as marketing material, right? So I was already tapping into this. Well, now we're seeing the trend that like some of the top of the top right now that are looking at speakers, authors, like how are we deciding who we're working with? They are now Googling people's name, and they're looking to see if you have a knowledge panel, which means it's all the data about you. So like if you Google your name or mine right now.
So that's when, like if you look up a movie star, for sure it's going to be there.
It's their picture, it's their name, it's all of their links, it's all of their socials, it's all of their websites, it's books, it's everything that they've done. Like that is the absolute credibility stamp. That says that you are a credible resource and you're an expert in this craft. And the next level is going and getting a Wikipedia, right? Which is also now what we're building for our clients. But that's what they're looking for now. So they're Googling your name. They're hitting the news tab, which says this is who's talking about you right now. And they're looking at the knowledge panel. That's all they're looking at. Because social media is going to, if it goes away, all you have is your name and what's been written about you and your credibility.
And this is where it ties back in, I think, to the rest of the conversation, is that social media has been this place where people can fake it till they make it. And there's a lot of fake, there's a lot of stuff, right?
That phase is gone.
And what's happening in the world, tying back into everything that we're talking about, is this dissolving of that and needing to go back to authenticity, right? And that, I feel, is what is the movement.
That's it.
And that's where you're at. And that's what you're tuning into.
That's exactly what we're tapping into, is like real truth.
Yeah.
Because I can't make a knowledge panel. I can't mess with the algorithms. But you have to do it right. And you have to have the right steps, the right tiers, the right credibility. Like Google just blocked like 50,000 publications. There's so much garbage PR. There's people like, I can help you do this. Most of it's garbage, right? We are literally, I'm working with celebrities right now to push down some of the crap that maybe they had for years ago and rebuild their brand, because we have to do it the right way. And this is the long-term play. Yeah. This is like the long-term play, like looking at how do you want to be searched for? Like what are the key words? Just like on YouTube, if you're searching for, how to build a business online and you are searching for that, you're going to see certain people because they're keyword ranking. You need to be able to have that also on Google that pulls you up in your website as that credible source. Yep. And that's where the juice is right now. It's not social, it's not Facebook ads. Yeah, that's, like instant gratification stuff. It's traffic, but the juice is coming from the base, which where it all started. Yeah. But we got lazy because marketers came in, right? Started figuring out social media and started paid ads, and they stopped doing all the quality stuff.
Yeah. No, this is really. I love how we're finishing on something really tactical. Yeah. But it's actually tied in. It's actually tied into all the rest of it. That's really, really cool. Yeah. So Unstoppable
Branding Agency
and
RhondaSwan.com.
Rhonda Swan.
Yeah.
Rhonda
easy.
Swan.
It's the easiest place to find me. I've certainly, you search for me, you should look me up so you can see this knowledge panel, what it is. Yeah. Because that's what everyone's coming to me for now. They're like, what? It's not even about this blue tick anymore. Yeah. There's certain ways you can get that stuff. That's so vanity. It doesn't even mean anything anymore, especially for entrepreneurs. Unless you've done something major.
This is really cool because, and I know of there's podcasters as an example who are blown up on the podcast channels. They get the listens, they get the views, but they don't have all that social media presence because it can be so fake.
It's all fake, and it's vanity. Most of it is now becoming fake and vanity. Yeah. So the blue tick is such a big thing. We do help our clients get there. In fact, I restarted my whole blue tick process 6 months ago because I could have gotten it and they were going to I'll give it to you. And I said, no, I'm going to do it the right way. I'm going to get all of the exact publications, the articles, because you could pay for it.
Yeah.
See, they'll say, oh, I know this guy internal, you can pay for it. And that's what so many people are doing. It's all blah, blah, blah. But then you look at him, you're like, does this guy have a knowledge panel? No. Has he written a book? No. Like, you know, to see which is garbage and not. But it's fine because that's what people are doing. That's why we know at the base what it works, what's really working. And the people that have been producing high quality content that are known for what they're doing, they're people who could care less if they have a blue tick.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like you just know who you are. You don't need a blue tick to tell you that you are. Because that's just social media stuff. And I'd rather be Google verified than social media verified, really.
Yeah. I've got one final question for you. But before I do that, I just want to acknowledge you because, as I mentioned before in the start, I mean, you're such a great example for what's possible, especially for women, with really tuning into this flow and this actual power and this feminine power. And like, I feel like we've touched on some really interesting insights for the direction of the world and the direction of humanity and giving people permission. Because like, I think people feel they have this intuition about this stuff, but they just push it away. So when somebody really powerful steps up and does this on the depth that you've done it, it's a beautiful example. So thank you for that. I asked you this question last time, I'm pretty sure, but I want to ask it again because like it seems like you've got like new perspectives and fresh eyes. So if you had the one-time superpower of mental telepathy and you could give a message to all 7.8 billion or whatever the number is now of humans on this planet, one short message, what would that message be?
Stay grounded, be humble, and get connected back to Mother Earth. Everything that we need is already given to us. Everything, food, water, shelter, we have it all, and love. Get back to the basics and everything will flourish around you. Don't look out for the things that you think that you need. Look for what you've got.
Rhonda Swan, thank you so much. That's really
my pleasure.
Really beautiful, amazing to talk to you. And no doubt there'll be a round 3. I'm looking forward to more ceremonies and whatever else
Let's bring it together.
That we do.
See you in the teepee.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you go check out Rhonda Swan and the Unstoppable Branding Agency, and I'll see you next time back down the rabbit hole.